I've been thinking recently just how much church has changed and evolved over this last season. We still meet together in groups via Zoom. We still pray, we still read the word, but worship has changed. We used to meet in rooms like this and we would sing out loud together. But I've chatted to quite a few of you and I know no one's really singing at home. I mean, I wanted to sing at home, but my wife would not allow it. I know there's some of you right now screaming at the screen, saying, Dan, we sing out loud, but it's either because you've got a great voice or maybe you live by yourself. But either way, it seems like we've stopped singing in this season. So I wanted to speak about worship because singing is just an expression of worship. Worship is so much more. Worship is not about the position of your hands. Worship is about the position of your heart. Worship's not about the music style. Worship's about your lifestyle. You know, the definition of worship is to give adoration, devotion, or glory to someone or something. And the reality is that every single person worships something. Whether you're Christian or non-Christian, whether you attend church or you don't attend church, everybody glorifies something. Now, if you're sitting there and you say, Dan, I'm all in, I decide to give God the glory, then I want to put it to you that actually you've hit a place of maturity. Because maturity is not how high you jump in praise and worship. Maturity is not how loud you can sing. And maturity is how straight you can walk in obedience. And all the way through the Bible, it talks about living for an audience of one and giving God the glory. In Exodus 14, verses 17, God says, and I will take you through the Red Sea, and I will receive glory. 1 Samuel 12 says, I will rescue, O people, for my name's sake. Psalm 115 says, not to me, O Lord, not to my name be the glory, but to your name be the glory, for your kindness and your truth. Isaiah 43 says, even when you walk through the fire, you will not be burned, for I love you. Do not be afraid. Do not fear, for I created you for my glory. That's just Old Testament. Let's go New Testament. Matthew 5, verses 16 says, show your good deeds, not for your glory, but for God's glory. Romans 9 says, you have been appointed to display his power within you, so that his fame will spread throughout the earth. And Revelations 4 says, worthy you, O Lord, to receive all glory, honor, and power, for you created all things. I guess my question is, church, is that why do we spend our life worshiping people when we were actually created to worship the one who created people? Why would we worship man who can sometimes let us down when we can worship the one who will never let us down, the one who will never leave us, never forsake us, never overlook us, the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords? So what do you worship? Who do you give glory to? Now, right here in Oxford, in England, a book was written called Lord of the Rings. And in there is a character called Gollum. And his two famous words are, my precious. That little golden ring was his deepest treasure. It was his source of joy. It's what he gave glory to. It's what he worshipped. So I want to ask you, what's your deepest treasure? What's your source of joy? What do you give glory to? What do you give adoration to? What's got your heart right now in this very moment? If you want to know where your heart's at, you just got to look at the 5 T's. Where you spend your time, your talk, your thoughts, your treasure, and your talent. Where do you give all your time to? What do you think about? What do you speak about? What do you give your treasure to? Because where your treasure is, there your heart is also. What do you give your talent to, your skill and your ability to? Look where you place those 5 T's and it will reveal where your heart's at. Put it another way. If we went to a coffee shop and we sat down and I looked through your mobile phone just for 5 minutes, I could tell you where your heart's at. I could tell you what you glorify. I could tell you what you worship. I look at who you call and who you text, who you spend your time with. I look at your camera roll to see all of your memorable moments. I look at your social media to see who you follow and who you secretly follow. I look at your social media posts because what you post about tells me what you're passionate about. Some of you are very passionate about cooking throughout the season. Some of you are very passionate about your kids and your cats. Some of you take a lot of selfies, so it's clear to me that you're very passionate about, well, anyway. I look at your banking app and go through the last month just to see where you spent your money. Give me one day, give me 5 minutes even with your mobile phone and I'll tell you where your heart's at. I'll tell you what you worship. And maybe if we did this exercise, it would offend you. Do you know what I've realized? Sometimes it's good to offend the mind so that you can see where your heart's at. Where's your heart at? See, worship is not out of obligation, it's out of adoration. It's not because you have to, it's because you choose to. It's out of the heart. Now let me just, bring this whole thing to a close. In Philippians 3, verses 19, Paul is writing to the church in Philippi, and he tells them that your food has become your God. You worship food. The truth is, we all subconsciously sacrifice for what we worship. For example, if you do love Liverpool Football Club, well done, you boys won the Prem, as Matt was just saying. But if you do love Liverpool Football Club, you will naturally, subconsciously sacrifice for that club. You'll give your time watching the games. You'll give your thoughts thinking about the players and the skills and the goals. You'll give your talk to talking about how good and how great the club is. We know you're not going to stop talking about this win for a while. You'll give your treasure. You'll spend your money on the season ticket, on Sky Sports and buying the shirt. You will naturally, subconsciously sacrifice because you love Liverpool. So we all subconsciously sacrifice for what we worship. Paul is saying that your God is food. Now we know if you worship food, there is a negative consequence from that. There is a negative impact on your body. It affects your blood level, your cholesterol level. I've even seen documentaries where people have worshipped food so much that they've had to be crane lifted out of their house. If you worship food, it's going to have a negative impact on your body. Let's swap food. Let's put alcohol there. In the good times, you go to the bottle. In the bad times, you go to the bottle. But what's the negative impact it has on your body? Well, it's your liver, it's your health, it's your family, it's your marriage, it's your relationships, it's your career. If you worship alcohol, if alcohol takes everything from your life, it has a negative impact on your life. Remove alcohol, put gambling there. It's the same thing. Put anything else other than Jesus Christ, and you'll realize that that very thing will take from you. It will deplete you. It has the ability to destroy you. But put Jesus Christ in his rightful position as number one of your life, and you will see that he will restore you, he will complete you, he will prepare you for everything he has for you. As you press into Jesus Christ, everything else will drop off you. So maybe we don't have a food problem or a food issue. Maybe it's not even an alcohol issue or a gambling issue. Maybe it's just a worship issue. Maybe we just need to change the order and put Jesus Christ as number one of our life. Give him our time and our talk. Go all in for him. Give him our heart. Give him our everything. As we draw near to him, he will draw near to us, as it says in James 4 verses 8. Worship was created by him so that we can become more like him. So we don't live a life full of issues and problems, but so we can step into the life that he has for us. Maybe today on this very Sunday, you've gone to church on YouTube. And maybe you're sitting there still feeling empty. You know, it's never meant to be about church attendance. It was always meant to be about God's presence. It was always meant to be about intimacy. And so in this very moment, Isaac and Sarah are going to lead us in a time of worship. And I want to encourage you in this very moment to cast your cares upon him, to give him your weaknesses, to give him your issues, to give him your troubles. And you watch, as you put him first of your life, as you glorify him, as you worship him, all the negativity and everything that has been holding you back, chaining you up, will disappear. And in this moment, I believe that you're going to encounter the freedom that only comes from Christ.
Cast your cares on his shoulders. Cast your cares on his love. In my weakness, in my trouble, he won't let go. If I lose my way, Lord, I pray, lead me home. In the darkness, when it's hardest, you are my hope. In my highs and lows, cast your cares on his shoulders. Oh, cast your cares on his love. When I'm lonely, console me, ignite my faith. In these broken days, fix my ways with your grace. When I'm searching, when I'm hurting, you're my hiding place. I'll trust in your ways. So cast your cares on his shoulders. Cast your cares on his love. On his love. The storms might come, but he'll never leave. Take his word, he'll forever be source of strength when we're running out of energy. Place your cares on his shoulders, the remedy. He'll give you strength that is needed for every task. I know he's on our side and that's everything. In the past he has led us even through the dark. And everything we need we can ask. Cause I know
that you're with me.
You're with me.
You're near me.
You're near me.
You're for me.
You're for me.
I know that you're listening
and leading and loving.
I pray that you'll hear me.
You hear us and free us and carry.
I know that you're with me, you're near me, you're for me.
In my weakness, when it's darkest,
And it's hardest,
when I'm lonely,
console me.
when I'm searching.
Oh, Jesus,
Oh, I
need
know
you that
you're with me, you're near me.
know that you're with me.
We cast our cares on you.
I cast my cares
On your shoulders.
on His shoulders. Oh, Jesus, I cast my cares
On His love.
on His love. I cast my cares, everything I give to you, Lord,
On His
it's
shoulders.
yours, Jesus.
Yeah.
I cast my cares
On your never-ending love, Lord.
on His love.
Cast my
My cares, Lord, they're all yours, Lord.
on His shoulders. I'll cast my
Cares
on His
In Romans 12, it says, so here's what I want you to do. Take your everyday, ordinary life, your sleeping, eating, and going to work, and place it as an offering before God. Embracing what God does for you is the best thing you can do for Him. And I guess we're going to continue on this conversation about worship, which I guess is an offering towards God. And we've got Matt here, and Isaac and Sarah are going to come and join us.
Here they are now.
Hi, guys.
Guys, well done.
Hey, friends.
That was phenomenal.
Thanks.
I think, one of the things I think that Den really stuck out for me, what Den was saying, was that so often we do draw the conclusion that worship is actually just about singing. It is about just that songs, that kind of thing. But he so clearly pointed that actually it's that whole devotion, it's the whole entirety of our life actually, and where we put our time and our talent, our treasure, our talk, all that kind of thing. I think, there was a lot to take away from it.
Yeah. There's this hymn, this old hymn that says, where your treasure is, there your heart shall be. All that you possess shall never set you free. Seek the things that last, come and learn from me. Where your treasure is, your heart shall be.
Wow.
And I remember, I actually always think of that. And when I'm focusing on other things and I actually forget to worship God and I'm worshiping money or I'm worshiping even my marriage or whatever, it does fix my eyes back on Jesus.
Yeah.
And Sarah, I wanted to actually chat to you first and just open the conversation up for anyone who wants to say anything. But just on worship, and you're an artist, you sing songs and they're not necessarily around Jesus or
lyrics aren't explicitly,
yeah, exactly.
yeah.
So I wanted to ask for people that are at home that actually might work in offices or might work in shops or work in medicine, they work for the NHS, or like you are singers, how do you find that you can still worship even when you're not saying the words or you're not doing what Romans 12 says?
Question.
Yeah. Oh, this is very broad because there's so much. When you know that worship is your whole life, it doesn't get penalized down to that place in church where we're singing, and I think it's so interesting in this time of COVID where we haven't been able to meet, and so then it's really confronted me in how am I worshiping? And I think for me, wherever you are, it doesn't matter what profession you're in, you're always meeting people and it's always relational, and I just feel like Jesus is so about people, right? And we're His plan A as the church. So for me, worship just looks like putting people first, whoever it meets, and I think even though I'm not explicitly going, hey, you need to give your life to Jesus on first time meeting, I just always find that, once you've built a relationship with people are more receptive to maybe what you believe and what you have to say. So for me, it always comes first to just, love people and just build relationships with people. And then aside from that, I guess there's just things in my heart that I know will mean that I'm in my head putting God first, which is things like tithing or devotional times, or just those kind of disciplines where that's me giving every aspect of my life to God and going, it's yours and it's not mine.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that's cool. I just want to pick on something you said there. Like, I know Dan was alluding to where we put our treasure, and you just talked about tithe. I definitely think it's not the first thing that comes to mind when we think of, like, right now we're going to engage in worship.
Yeah.
Not like, oh, great, where's my wallet? I can't wait for this. You know, it's normally like a tithe. It's a bit like, I was hoping they weren't going to mention it at this service, you know.
Yeah.
But actually, like you're saying, it is that whole devotion to God, right? So, Isaac, for you, the discipline of what Sarah was just saying there, of the areas of your life, how is it that you have found over the years to make sure that you're disciplining yourself to give God honor, praise, glory in all areas of your life?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think I've just tried my best to be intentional about putting him first. I haven't always done that in the right way. So I used to try and be like a man of routine.
Yeah.
So if I wake up at 7 a.m., I'll have like my devotion time till 7:15, listen to some worship, then I'm ready to start the day. But I've realized that I was trying to do that, but the stuff wasn't actually going into my head because I was like just too tired. I had sleep in my eye and all that kind of stuff. So I just thought, you know what, like I'm gonna take the pressure out off the routine and just focus on my relationship with Jesus. And Jesus isn't just there in my morning devotion or on church on a Sunday. I want to involve him in every area of my life. So he walks with me throughout the whole day. So I might have my devotion at 4 o'clock, like just before dinner or something, or I might have it on the way to the train station. As long as I'm making space and putting him first in everything I do, then I think I'm doing all right.
And Isaac, you actually wrote a whole album called Hands Are Made for Working, and it was a worship album.
Yeah.
And it kind of came from a place, from what I understand, from a place of losing your dad.
Yeah.
So you kind of worshiped through really hard times, and I wanted to kind of open the conversation about how in this time, okay, we are in COVID, like Sarah said, but also there's been so much racial tension and other things that have made people feel like they're losing their faith and they can't worship.
Yeah.
How have you, like, I feel like you're a role model for doing it well. Like, how have you kind of dealt with that in that time as well?
Well, I grew up in a church that had to put a bow on everything, and we almost pretended like life was always perfect, even though we knew that we were all going through our different struggles.
Yeah, right.
And so with this album, Hands Are Made for Working, I just tried to keep the tissues out for a little longer and say that, you know what, I trust and put my faith in a God that's big enough to deal with my questions, my doubts, my struggles. So I'm not going to be ashamed of being vulnerable. I'm not going to put on this mask and pretend that I'm fine, because God knows I'm not. And I know that there's a lot of my friends and a lot of people that might be able to relate to that. So I think it just came from just being open and honest with where I was at. And Psalm 13 was like a huge help for me, because it's David speaking to God, and he's like really angry. He's like, God, why have you forsaken me? Why are my enemies triumphing over me? And I never really got taught that I could be that honest with God. I thought it was all like, oh, Father, you're so great, and that kind of stuff, which he is, but he can also deal with my angry prayers, you know, so
Yeah, very good.
Yeah, that's cool. I mean, David used to, you know, obviously he was tending the sheep, he loved playing the harp. We don't really see harps played too many these days. I think bring back the harp. But not everyone are singers and songwriters, as Vidila was just pointing out before, but for Sarah, for you, there's obviously been times in your life, and one of the things that I do love about music is that, I think we'd all agree on, is that you guys managed to put words to maybe our thoughts and emotions that maybe we just didn't realize were there. So you know that song that you hear, where you know, maybe Dominion Theatre, and you're like, oh yeah, oceans, you know, the tears come flowing, whatever it is. In all seriousness, it does. Like there's things that unlock inside of us. For you though, is there maybe something that you have written, that you have done in your life that would be able to relate to, you know, you've written it from your place of, this is my intention behind it, but maybe it's been received in another way? Because I think we're all maybe not guilty of that, but we all say things with maybe one intention, but it's actually received in another way.
Yeah, I have it all the time. I think...
Good stuff.
I've got one song called Good Stuff, which Governor likes. But yeah, like, I write things from personal experiences and say like Good Stuff. It sounds like a heartbreak song, but it was actually written about how my family foster, and when kids move on from us, you just remember all the best memories.
Yeah.
But then I've had so many messages where it's like, oh my gosh, that relates to this breakup thing I've had or whatever, or this loss that I've had. So I don't know, for me, definitely it happens, and I think it's just the really cool thing about God as well. When you are going through something and you do something and you bring it to him and he takes that physical thing, whatever you've done, and then without me even realizing or imagining how, he can just twist that and then let it speak to other people in their lives. So it definitely happens, and it happens vice versa, where there are songs that I love, and in the season that you're in, you're like, whoa, this song suddenly speaks volumes. And I think it's just one of the really cool ways that God makes his presence known to people.
Yeah, so true.
Yeah.
And when you guys are in, so obviously we've been in lockdown, which means we've been watching, like as Dan said, like we've been watching worship on a screen. Do you guys worship, like while you're watching it?
When you say worship, do you mean...
like do you like raise it? Like, you know, go for it.
I do.
I feel like I did it the first week,
Yeah.
like with my son and my wife and stuff. And then from the second week, it was more of like a reflective experience.
For sure. I've been
You know
using
what I'm
it as a super reflective, like even open my Bible moment. Because I think, there's something about watching it. That, I don't know if this is right to say, but like you're watching it, and it doesn't mean like God's speaking, but it's not necessarily the whole like over singing out loud.
Yeah,
I don't know if that's the wrong answer to say.
But do you know what? Because I overheard Matt say something about Aria, your daughter.
Yeah. Well, what you guys are saying though is like, there's nothing wrong with it. I think that's what Dan, like in his message, completely debunked the notion that you have to sing in order to give worship, right? But we've got a bit of a strange one in our house. Strange in the sense of we want to sing. I love singing, I'm terrible at it, so you wouldn't want me up there with you guys in ears, it'd be terrible. But with Aria, she's 3 years old. So for her right now, she's in this stage, she doesn't have kids' church. So we're going, hey darling, this is church, you know? So we could sit there and do the same things. But I think we need to let our actions almost display to her our engagement, like our worship. So that, and my wife and I have talked about this, but it just seems like the logical thing at the moment in terms of like, if we can show her that, okay, our voice isn't great, sorry, but we're going to engage in this moment because actually there is that heart's connection. And I think what you guys have been talking about so well is that it is about what's going on in here. So like my lips can be saying one thing, but what's going on in my, in my head and my heart. And there are so many distractions at home. So don't get me wrong, like it's 1 minute we're worshiping, you're like, Aria, stop picking your nose or something like that. But I think it's a good place just to come back to, whether it is a reflection time, whether it is singing, or whether it is just closing your eyes. And that's something we don't often do enough either, is just actually be still and go, all right, God, what are you saying?
Yeah, definitely. And I think also, even if it's not specifically in that moment of online worship, it doesn't mean, I know you were saying it's not, you still set aside time to worship. You know? And I still set aside time to just be silent, you know, with God. So yeah, it's not as organised or formal as that moment. Okay, now I'm going to worship. It's just like had a long day. Okay, definitely need to just have a moment to meditate on God.
Imagine if we only gave God, we're like, God, you got 20 minutes to move. That's it. And once we're finished singing, that's it.
That's it for the 7 days. That's all.
Also, I'm not like the most expressive in worship anyway. Like,
that's funny because
like
you're an artist. So I'm like,
but I can only get one hand up.
One hand.
And then, but any more than that feels a bit vulnerable. You know what I mean? You guys like 2-hand worshippers?
Yeah, I'm all in.
I'm a whole body.
I was like traditional church growing up, so my dad was the guy who would be like, he'd start here, then he'd be here, and no one else would have their hands up. I'm like, oh my gosh, Dad, put your hands down. But it wasn't until you understand why people do it, right? So that's the great thing about it.
Yeah, and Isaac, you're actually going to be singing one of your songs from your newest album, which is Everywhere Nowhere. It is called Follow Me. What does that mean to you?
I wrote it at a time that I felt quite overwhelmed because there was a lot of bad news in the world, and this was quite a few months ago, and there's still a lot of bad news in the world, but it just reminds me to not focus on that as much, but place my focus up there to Jesus, because he's bigger than it all, and he has the ability to pour blessings down on us, even in the midst of storms.
Amen. Amen.